Happy birthday! Oh, I need to explain. I can hear I need to explain. My sister-in-law taught all of our family to regard every day as their birthday. Today, my friends, is a very, very special day. It's the only one we've got. And we are surrounded by birthday gifts, some of which are wrapped as problems. How to eat an elephant? Well, we're going to take a journey. And I invite you not only to consider the lessons I learned facing death at 8,000 feet, but the birthday invitation. Please join me. And we are, in fact, going to jump in. And we are going to rise up together to 8,000 feet. And this birth date is the 17th of May, 1997. As we get out of the basket, here is the main character in this story. My beloved brother-in-law, Bruce, at 8,000 feet. Bruce married my sister, Kathleen, 26 years ago. You'd love Bruce, just about as much as I love him. But I need to step back just a minute. Let me explain, firstly, that there are 3 volcanoes active in New Zealand. Ruapehu is the one in the background, but I need also to explain it's not part of my story. It was not active that day. The other thing I need to point out is that this is 4 o'clock in the morning. You see, Bruce, Kathleen, and I camped at the base of the mountain. Why? So that Bruce and I could get a good early start before daybreak. I used the flash. Bruce gave me a hard time because he knew it would highlight his bald head. However, I want quickly to point out that are crampons, spikes that you cramp onto your boots, and you need them when you're on a glacier of 45-degree slopes. And the other thing I need to explain is that what he's actually doing here is putting on leggings, because he taught me to put layers and layers and layers of clothing on to start with, because it's sub-zero here, it's cold, and he taught me just peel them off as you get up. It was a glorious day, 17th of May, just like every birthday. And even at 8,000 feet, we were sweating like pigs, but we peeled off all of the clothing. So let's get back then to 8,000 feet. Here's Bruce, and I'm going to draw your attention to the glacier behind him and share with you a second in my life that is the most precious. By the way, I calculated, I've been around for a while, over 2,000 million seconds. The one that I treasure most was just a little bit above where that shot was taken. Let me explain. Ask you to picture me standing on a rock that Bruce insisted I de-ice. Now that simply means use the side of your axe, and as you hit the ice, it would typically shatter the surface of the ice and create a little space that you could stand on, sit on, rest on, and even if it was wet, it was certainly safe to stand there. So please picture me standing on this safe spot. Bruce says, okay, I'll show you how to negotiate this rather more difficult part of the glacier. So I'm standing there watching him. And as he works his way up, quite truthfully, I'm thinking, yeah, I can do that. And so I step off when my turn comes, pretty confidently. Besides, Bruce, who's now about 60 feet higher than where I am, he's cheering me on. Very much a cheerleader, a very positive guy. Dig him in, he says, which is a reference to the need to kick these spikes in as I work my way up. And I not only got to the spot that I was aiming at, but the ice stood on it, and I was high as a kite. In fact, truthfully, we were both intoxicated with the drug of fresh water, the drug of beauty all around us, with the high of the majesty of the peaks around us, intoxicated primarily by the spirit of brotherly love. A smile that was probably on my face whipped off very quickly, because from where I'm standing, I could see that the crampons on Bruce's right leg were off on a funny angle, and I could tell he was in that precarious position. All I said was, "Hey, Bruce, your crampons are coming off." Moved his body slowly. Bang! A huge bang. I actually heard an auditory crash. As he banged down on his back, on the surface of the eye, he started to slide slightly to my left. Unbelievably fast. He was 230 pounds, 6'3", plus the weight of the pack and all its contents, because we had taken the clothes off, the water bottles, the medical supplies, the chocolate bar. He started this incredibly fast slide, which actually made me faint, because I was in such a shock. I hit the rock, and I came to a few seconds later hanging onto the rock. However, I did have time, before I literally fainted, stick out my left hand. And he's coming feet first. He saw my left hand, and he stuck out his left hand. And here's the second, that I think is the most precious in my life. Our hands got approximately that far apart. And Bruce, not I, Bruce, not I. It was Bruce who pulled his hand back. We knew what was going to happen then. And I stand here, not only excited to share that second with you, partly because I firmly believe it does illustrate the statement that greater love hath no man that he lay down his life for his friend. That's exactly what Bruce did. Had he taken my hand, no doubt in my mind, I wouldn't be here. I'd be whipped off. At that point, I did not know, because he disappeared behind some rocks that were slightly lower than where I was standing, that he rocketed into the arms of the Creator real fast. And he's in a better place than him. And interestingly, it was his favorite mountain. And he's probably looking down and saying, "Well, I'm okay." But still, I did not know that he was almost instantly dead. Probably in 4 or 5 seconds, he would have been dead. He banged his head and that's it. Well, at that point, I did not know he was quickly dead, and I worked my way down. "Bruce!" Couldn't hear anything, and I was puzzled because I couldn't see. I had beautiful clarity. I could even see Mount Taranaki that's 200 miles away. But by the time I got down to a point where the clouds started to come in, I tell you, I was a mess. Physically, my legs were shaking. And you see, I made an error. I peeled off all of the clothing that I started with and stuck them in the pack. So now I'm wearing a sun hat, a t-shirt, shorts, boots, crampons, and I have my axe. But I'm starting now to get cold. And if the physical was only half the problem, emotionally, I'm a mess. I'm starting to feel I let my precious beloved brother-in-law down. And at that point, I made a decision. I don't know if it was right or wrong. But as the clouds started to come in, the sun went round the edge of the mountain, I actually turned around and went back up. Because I suddenly thought, well, that's right, there's a hut up there, 300 feet short of the top. Cell phone, radio, supplies. I needed help. So as the sun got darker and darker, I actually went to the hut, and probably it was a mistake, because I discovered this much ice all over the door. I had to use the axe to chip in, and there was no cell phone, no radio, no supplies, just that. And I haven't told you yet, but 17th of May, this particular birth date, in fact, that whole week, the temperature was unusually hot during the day and unusually cold at night, and the range of temperature turns what many climbers turns the ice into what climbers call boilerplate. It was just like steel. Bruce attempted to stop himself, but he couldn't with the pick, the axe. And as I went into the hut, I realized, uh-oh, but I couldn't go down. Nobody in their right mind would climb up or down in the dark. And I did mention that Kathleen, Bruce and I had camped at the base to get a good early start. The arrangement was for Kathleen to drive the camper van around several miles around the base of the mountain and pick us up at 5 o'clock. So here I am, stuck in the hut. Oh, thank goodness for Kathleen. She'll sound the alarm. And as I predicted, I was picked up by a helicopter the next morning, miraculously still alive. But I need to attempt to describe the cold, because I thought I knew what cold was. You see, it was described in the newspaper the next morning that the temperature that I spent that memorable night dropped down to minus 30. Now, we're Canadians, we know all about that, but hat, t-shirt, shorts. Oh, boy, it was that cold. I thought I knew what it was, but I had no clue when I eventually collapsed on the floor, shuddering uncontrollably. The air felt so cold that when I breathed it in, it was like a stabbing sensation in my chest, which I found that when I held my breath and used whatever warmth I still had, it did ease the pain. But it's the way we're designed, isn't it? I had to let it go. And as I counted out loud and breathed out these precious 2 lungs of warmer air, I counted out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds. And at that point, I thank God I got through those 5 seconds and then did it again. Now, you know, I was picked up by a helicopter. But let me share some of the lessons that this true story taught me. And my number one, really why I said happy birthday, this is a very special day. Every day is a special day. There's no guarantee for tomorrow. And another lesson that was related to that, I think I can share the story with you because, and probably only because, I did tell Bruce of my love. Had I not done that, I'd be kicking myself with guilt and remorse. So seize the day to express your love, not only to your family members, but even the people you're seated with today. In fact, let me slam down a challenge that before the day is up, that you seize the day while we have it, to express something positive. May not be love, but at least tell the person you've met today beside you something that is not only positive, has to be real, but will make their day. Of course, the beauty of that is that it will also make yours as well. That's a lesson that is hard to believe all the time, not initially, but now I am convinced that even tragedies are potential blessings. As Ralph Waldo Emerson said, God sends us gifts wrapped as problems. The bigger the problem, the bigger the gift. Choice, surely our greatest freedom. And I won't read that to you because the down under language is such, you won't know whether I'm saying I or E. But I hope it's obvious what I'm driving at. Because the thinking, the attitude that we have, choose, phenomenally important. I even think that leadership is a disposition, it's not a position. It's a thought choice, not a title. So if in fact we do become what we think, well, this birthday, we're surrounded by huge jars of lemonade, wrapped as lemons. You probably know this Asian quote, I think it's Chinese, that a journey 1,000 miles begins with the first step. Probably Ray would agree with that. Easy story, wasn't it? Let me share the 5-second technique, which I've come to believe in passionately. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Please notice the biggest toe is number 1. So, first thing is actually to step back in order to breathe forward. What is the reality? Well, this is going to be the longest night of my life. Secondly, what's the main thing? Prioritize. It was not just to survive, but what I chose to have as the main thing was to see the rising sun. Thirdly, break down the priorities into manageable tasks and intervals, even 5-second intervals. And of course, identify the first step and take the bite. So now you know why I called it How to Eat an Elephant. Because you know the answer to this. Why don't you call it out? What is the answer to how you eat an elephant? You got it! One mouthful at a time. Boy, did I passionately learn that. There were 3 bone marrow principles that had just screamed at me. Firstly, power of vision. Secondly, the power and importance of correction. And third, the absolute power of selflessness. And of course, of these 3, the last one is the most important. Firstly, the vision. Boy, did I learn the power of vision. I absolutely hung on to the expectation that I was going to see the rising sun. And now I think King Solomon was true. Where there's no vision, people perish. If I hadn't had that vision, I'm sure I would actually have perished. Secondly, the absolute importance of correction. Now, back in 1969, when the Americans aimed at and made history by landing on the moon, the rocket was not following that black line. What the rocket was really doing was this. As you see, the computers, that little X there, played an absolutely crucial role in monitoring and correcting the rocket. Because here's what NASA has reported. 97% of the time, it was a little bit off track. 97% of the time in my life, I'm a little bit off track. I need constantly to correct. And so the conclusion here is that mastery, or call it success if you like, such as Ray accomplished with those amazing runs. Mastery is the art of correction, not protection. When I was hanging on to the vision of hoping to see the rising sun, I admit I was tempted to drift towards the black thoughts of fear and dying and never seeing my loved ones again. I corrected that over and over again, pull it back. Because you see, this whole experience taught me that an obstacle is that which you see when you take your eyes off the vision. The third one, and most important, not only is selflessness crucial, but Bruce actually pulling his hand back. I mean, the authenticity and the integrity and courage of that guy, amazing. Now, there was not time to say anything as he was sliding by, but it's what he did. In fact, we are watched, and it's not what we say so much, it's what we do that is really important for all of us. Paston, a world authority in ethics, said, ignore what they say about ethics. Observe what they do. So, as I'm sure you agree, I certainly learned it right into the marrow of my bones. Success, we have to integrate our heart and our hands. So as I close the book in the epilogue, 5 seconds at a time, similarly, I close my story. And delighted to introduce you to my precious sister, Kathleen. Can you guess what she did within 1 year of tragically losing her precious husband? Yeah, you got it right. She climbed the mountain, but here's the closing point. She told me later she didn't climb the mountain just to face and deal with the fears that represented, the tragic, the horror of it. Oh, ready for this? She climbed the mountain to stop the heart. Oh, on the off chance that someone else would be in the predicament I was. Now, surely that is selflessness. You would love to meet my precious sister. God bless you.